This is Mark of Music and Mental Health, and welcome back for my next Champion Within conversation. I haven't done this in a little while, but an opportunity presented itself, and I am very thankful to have Chris here of We Are Mentally Shredded. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so the two of us have been following each other Instagram, I guess, for probably about a year. Is that when you said you followed me?
I think it has been about a year or so.
Yeah, so the cool thing about the story you were telling me of following me is that you said you found me randomly through the algorithms. And
Absolutely.
I love hearing that particular thing because when I first started using social media, my algorithms had everything in them. They had the bus fight, they had the people that squared up in Walmart, anything that you could think of. I was like, this is just ruining my brain and it's just giving me all this negativity.
Yeah.
So my algorithms are like that too at this point, where when I scroll randomly, I find things that are all related to the things that I mess with in life. Positivity, mental health quotes, people who are doing things with business and entrepreneurship, because that's what I look at and that's what I like. And even though I don't understand everything about the algorithms, I do understand that when you like a whole bunch of stuff that is related to where you're trying to get to in life, that's what you start seeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, your algorithm tells you a little bit of who you are, right? Or a
Yeah.
lot of bit of who you are. And so if you're changing, if you're on this growth journey, I suggest start liking things that align with where you want to be, right? Maybe it's not who you are at this point, but that was the only thing that I did was I started following, financial gurus. I started following personal development gurus, right? People that I wanted to learn from. And that essentially started changing my algorithm. I had a lot of workout people on there because that's the space I come from. It's not necessary anymore, right? Like I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
see people working out. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not an issue that I'm looking to address. Um, yes, I take my physical health very seriously. I'm good on that, right? So what are some things that I can begin to like to change that algorithm that actually work in the direction that I'm looking to move forward in?
I love that. That sounds like a whole book right there. Change your algorithm, change your life.
100%. Honestly, I'll write the forward. If you write the book, I'll
Sounds like a plan. So I wanted to circle back and mention how we even started speaking in the first place. So you had reached out to me on Instagram and you said, hey, I love what I see on your page and I would like a chance to connect and speak to you. If you would like to do that, let me know when you have some availability. And I get lots of people who reach out to me for lots of things on social media. So I assumed, I didn't know you. So I was like, okay, he is going to reach out. We're going to have a conversation. And then at the end of his conversation, he's going to say, hey, I have this product or I have this brand that I'm trying to promote. And I think that you would be a good brand ambassador or whatever. I didn't know what it could be, but I thought it was something more than just, I want to connect and see what you're about and see um, how everything that you put out there kind of aligns with you as a person if we speak in person. So we got to the end of that conversation. I was waiting for that. And you actually said, it's like you read my mind. Hey, I know that people reach out for different things, but I don't have a sales pitch. It's like, I just want to connect to the people that I follow, I respect, that I see on my page. I don't connect with everybody, but the ones that I think are worth connecting with, I reach out, I give them a call, I give them a video call, we just connect, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I found that really interesting. Do you do that often?
I actually started doing that this year. Um, it was it was something that I was like, I'm very protective of my energy. I'm very protective of who I spend time with. And if I'm following people on social media and if I'm, sharing their stories and different things like that, I want to actually have an opportunity to talk to them. I want to see if they are who they say they are behind the mask, behind the algorithm, if you will, right? And so yeah, I just started reaching out to people this year, to be quite honest. In the past, I've reached out to people and never set up calls. It was just typically what I do is I'll DM people and say, "Hey, love what you're doing. Keep it up." Right? Just just to let people know that are doing positive things. I see you, right? Um, and it is noticed, right? And so this year I was like, let's just set up a call with these people, right? Like we're doing this thing called Life Together, and social media has allowed us, or technology has allowed us, to become friends with people all over the world, to follow people that you never would have had an opportunity to meet prior to this unless you left your area and went to, for me, from North Carolina to New York. Think about how big New York is. The
Yep,
chances of us running into each other are very slim. So
true.
I'm just taking advantage of building relationships via what we have offered to us today.
Yeah, and I think that what you're saying makes so much sense too, because you could see somebody who posts the most positive thing ever on social media, on wherever, Facebook, Instagram, and then I hate to use this as an example, but all of a sudden you find out this person is a serial killer or something, and you're like,
Fair.
but because we only see this capsulated small thing that they want to put out there, and quite frankly, anyone can say anything about themselves. I'm a mental health advocate, I'm this, I'm this. I've spoken to plenty of people about this before. It's like a resume almost, but people can lie on their resume. It's not even like something that people can really fact check, in a sense of a job can do a background check. They can at least call somebody. I mean, the person that they call can lie for you also. They could say, "Oh yeah, I was his boss at such and such company and he was an excellent worker." They can do that, but there's at least some measure of background checking. Whereas on the internet, you can say absolutely anything. So
Absolutely.
I think I agree with you completely that the best background check is actually to get on a video with somebody. Hey, tell me about yourself, tell me about your life. And you'll be able to hear with some discernment, does this align with all the things that I've been seeing on the page?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm 2 for 2 this year. But my goal is to do one a month. Just connect with 12 people this year that you didn't know before, on social media, and just have a 30-minute call with them. And and if it makes sense to continue that relationship, great. If it's only just a 30-minute call and we get to just have a conversation and that's all it is, that's cool too. Like there's literally no expectation from reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Just want to know more."
So I want to talk about your business and how that ties into your life. How did it start? We are mentally shredded.
Yeah, so Mentally Shredded started from my mental health journey taking a turn during COVID. I had experienced performance anxiety in soccer freshman year of high school, struggled through depression in college, and once COVID happened, I was one of the lucky ones. One of the many people that were suffering either in silence or outwardly with mental health, and so anxiety, depression, and I had expressed this to my employer at the time. Hey, something's off. Didn't really know what it was, but I knew it wasn't normal, right? And I remember the responses that I was getting were very much like, hey, thank you for letting us know. Take it easy, but make sure you get your work done, right? They didn't offer services. They didn't offer me to go speak to a counselor, a therapist, any of that. Take it easy, but get your work done. And I said, okay, maybe I need a vacation, right? And so
Mm,
that's what I did. I booked a vacation, went out west, and I think I was gone for about a week and a half. Got back that the weekend before going to work on Monday and had a panic attack. And as soon as I gathered myself through that experience, I put my 2 weeks in.
mm,
And so to me, that was my first step in reclaiming my power. Right now, it was a ugly road after that. Right. 3 months after, I didn't go seek help. 3 months, I rode that high of, hey, I just quit my job.
right.
Let like, wow, the world is my oyster, right? 3 months later, my granddad who raised me, my granddad passed, and
Mm,
now all those feelings spiraled back. But instead of dealing with just anxiety and depression, now I'm dealing with grief and loss, right? And so it was then that I found myself in the gym the next day after he passed. I'm home at this time, and I'm on the squat rack and I'm crying. Now, for people that know me, working out has been a part of my life for a while, for years.
mm,
Uh, I have not, I have never cried working out ever in my life. So that was a trigger that said, okay, something's definitely off now. If crying at night, crying myself to sleep wasn't enough, now I'm crying in the gym. I'm like, all right, I got to get myself together.
mm,
And that was the first time that I went home, told my family, hey, I'm not okay. I've been struggling with X, Y, and Z. And that just expression, that freedom allowed me to kind of, again, take that next step in reclaiming my power, right? After that, I reached out to therapists here in Carolina, and started that journey, another step, right? And so
yes.
and I hope that you begin to see, like, it wasn't just like, this is what I'm going to do. It was like, I took one step and then I took one step, right? It wasn't, I didn't take 5 steps and then boom, there it was. It was like, no, this was a journey, and it was setting me up to recognize that, Chris, you are going to be in this journey until the casket closes. You have to recognize that mental health is just that. So identify tools that will help you today, because the tools that were helping me before were just not working anymore. And so with Mentally Shredded, I had that name in 2020. I put it on a
Mm,
shirt, threw it in a closet. Because I did not know what it meant. I was like, man, that's a dope name. Didn't think about it, right? Then everything started happening. And I remember taking that shirt out, I put it on. I was like, okay, what does this mean? Right. And that allowed me to say, I think this is what I need to do. Right. When I quit my job, I had no plan. Right. I was like, I'm quitting so that I can fix myself, so I can repair what is broken.
mm,
Mentally Shredded turned into an advocacy platform, an advocacy brand, to where we advocate for people that are suffering in silence. We encourage people not to suffer alone. We encourage people to seek help, right? At the first sign of anxiety, at the first sign of depression, or whatever you're growing through. I always say growing, not going, because growing means we will get to the other side of this, right? And if you notice, Mentally Shredded has a double entendre. You were here. You were at the beginning, at the start of all of this, right? I want to help people bridge the gap to the other version of Mentally Shredded, where now you have reclaimed your power. Now you're showing up authentically as yourself, and you are winning, right? That is the triumph story, if you will. And it doesn't mean that you can't find yourself back on the other side. It just means now, hopefully, you have tools that help you get to the other side.
Wow, that's powerful. And I feel like I have 100 responses to what you just said. So I'm going to just try to narrow them down and kind of give them to you as I can think of them in my order. The first one was, I mean, that's great, obviously, that you were able to recognize, like, hey, Chris, I need help, that you were able to express that to your family, and that you were able to go to a therapist and start your journey. This powerful thing that you said is that you realized that this was going to be something from then until you go in the casket, because it made me think back to when I first went to therapy. And when I first went to therapy, it was out of desperation. I didn't want to tell my family. I didn't want to tell my friends. I didn't tell anybody. I was experiencing panic attacks at work. I can really relate to your story. I was doing well at my job, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started experiencing these really terrible panic attacks at work, and I would actually go to the bathroom. I cried in the bathroom a few times. I was just like, let me gather myself, come back out, and then just complete the work and not let anybody know until it got really significant to the point where this was happening several times in my workday. And I remember going to a general physician. And just to fast forward that a little bit, I got my diagnosis, general anxiety at the time. I think that's all he gave me because it was just a general physician. He didn't know too much about mental health, just the basics that he learned in school. So my boss ended up noticing that there was a difference in my behavior at work, that I was disappearing a lot and just my mood seemed a little bit different. And he said, let me have a private conversation with you. And he said, what's really going on with you, Mark? I just really want to know. We care about you and we just want to make sure everything is okay. So I made a decision at that point in time, trusted him enough to say, hey, I got this diagnosis and I'm okay. I'm getting it taken care of. And he said something similar to what you're saying, where he was like, you know what, take it easy, get the work done, but we're not going to give you anything extra. We're not going to give you overtime for now, because I was doing a lot of overtime. He was like, we're going to lighten the load to make sure that you're able to handle it because we value you. We think you're one of our best workers, etc. But long story short, I got fired from the job. They brought somebody in. They had me train that person. I said, is this person here to replace me? No, they told me no. And I ended up getting replaced. So that was one thing. I remember when I first went into my first therapist office and I was speaking to this person, I didn't think of therapy as something that I was going to do for any amount of time. It was more like I went online, I tried all these different things myself. I bought all these books. I went on YouTube. I tried everything that I could think of that was not therapy and it didn't work. So I was like, let me just have this mental health mechanic tune up whatever it is that needs to be fixed and then get out of there. So I remember there was a point where what was happening in therapy was helpful to me, but I said, I don't want to keep doing this forever. I just came here for a time. And I spoke to the therapist about my frustration about that. Like, I really have enjoyed these therapy sessions and getting to know more about myself. But back in those days, they used to have the paper. They did everything on paper. So at one time, I saw this huge stack of folders and papers that had all my notes for all this time I had been in therapy. And I said, when does it end? And the therapist told me something like what you said. It could end, it might not end, but it's like if it's something that you need, if it's something that is beneficial to you, you're learning tools and you're learning skills that you can utilize throughout your life in different scenarios. And I would say that there's so many things more that have happened to me now than what was happening to me then at 25, that I was able to reach for those things that I had learned about myself, things that I had learned about the outside world. And because of that, I am actually grateful and thankful to have been through these things, even though at one time I'm like, this is a curse on me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I appreciate you sharing those things.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting. You said the word curse, and I used to look at the the challenges, the pressure, everything that I was facing as a burden, not a blessing,
Yeah.
right? It took time for me to actually see that it was a blessing, right? And so I know that there are other people out there that they're growing through something at this very moment, and they're looking at it like a burden. And as long as we continue to look at it through that lens, we feel that weight, we feel that pressure. Well, the weight and the pressure is going to be there regardless. Even when we switch the lens, it's still going to be there. The beauty, however, in switching the the burden to blessing is you see hope on the other side. With burden, there is no hope. This is where I stay, right? This is where it ends. This is what I will be experiencing, and there is no hope. There is no joy. There is no peace. Who wants to live like that?
Mm-hmm.
I know I do not, right? And so I've learned to switch verbiage around. Even again, you're not going to see an immediate change, but the more you begin to repeat those things to yourself, the same way when you listen to music, if you listen to something negative over and over and over again, right? I have cousins, I have nephews that listen to the music of today, the music that they keep pushing, and they're angry. Why? Like we have to ask ourselves, why are we allowing our youth to listen to this type of music? And so I actually created playlists that I believe they'll be able to relate to, that is only positive, right? Same genre, just talking about something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually need to call my nephew today and ask him. I said, hey, listen to this for a week and I'm going to call you. And I'm curious what his response will be. I know it's changed my life switching my music around. I know it's changed my life switching what I watch, my movies, things like that, because we either there's two energies in this world, is positive and negative. So whether you believe in, oh, I don't believe I need to listen to this or watch that, cool, you don't need to believe that. But it's proven that there's a positive and negative energy. So you tell me which one you're opening that door to by listening or watching certain things, right? Um, I love the fact that you recognize there was an issue. I love music and mental health behind you, because that tells me already you're already thinking about this stuff,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't take away from the artist, right? I believe there are a lot of artists that can help people in certain seasons, but are you growing? Because there are artists that you could listen to at one point and they got you in, and you became a fan, and their music changes, right? There are certain artists that I vibed with in the beginning, and after different albums, you could see a shift. Well, when I begin to recognize that shift, I put them on the shelf. I
Right.
was like, okay, this doesn't serve me anymore.
Right.
I can still go back and listen to their old music because I could relate, right? And so um, it's just being mindful of protecting your ear gate, protecting your eye gate.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to say about that. Something that my trainer told me, my personal trainer told me at one time, not that long ago. He said, everything that we experience in life right now involves some kind of programming. So either you're sitting there experiencing the programming that somebody else is pushing into your mind, or you are setting the program yourself, literally for everything. I like to use the analogy of just sitting in a boat. You don't have any paddle in the boat. You're just there, and then the waves are coming, and you're just going wherever the waves are taking you. You're not going to get to a destination. Oh, I'm trying to go here from here, and I'm just going to sit here and see what happens. Especially when it comes to something like our minds, because they say 80% of our subconscious thoughts are negative. So if you're just sitting around, oh, let me think about whatever comes to my mind. We're gonna think about, what if somebody I'm close to gets in a car accident? What if I get some unexpected bill out of nowhere? We just think of all these worst case scenarios unless we're actually sitting there and saying to myself, I want to make sure that I know who my friends are, the people who are around me all the time. I want to make sure I know what I'm putting in my body. I want to make sure that I plan what I'm spending my money on. I want to make sure that I am conscious of the things that I'm putting on my TV. I want to pay attention to what music is playing when I'm in the car on the way to wherever. Because just like you said, a lot of little things, you might just think, oh, this is just entertainment. Who cares? That's not my life. But those thoughts start to combine themselves with your own thoughts. And if you see people who are always agitated, angry, um, aggressive, those things start to become you, and you're like, where did that even come from?
Mm-hmm. We feed worry, fear, and doubt, or we feed joy, peace, love. Right? You can't feed both at the same time. It's impossible, right? And so I think when building off of that, when we talk about both of our experiences in therapy, right? I graduated with a business degree.
Me too. That's so
They didn't teach
interesting.
me really how to build a business, but they taught you principles, right, along the way.
Yes.
So when I look at therapy, counseling, that is education. What it is doing is I'm now earning my degree in this specific field. I am gaining experience through my own journey in this specific field. And now I can take my experience of healing and growth and pour it into somebody else, which is why you have mentors, which is why in the church you have elders, right? You have people with lived experience that pour back in. And as long as we look at therapy as something negative, like, oh, I'm not crazy, right? Like I don't need that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
did you need education?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did you go to school to learn how to do math or to learn science and all of the things, right? Like just the basic stuff. Because I know I did. So I understand that it was just education to learn the basics. What therapy is doing is it's allowing you to learn the basics of you. What are your triggers? Why do you respond like this in certain situations? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And this is for um, maybe a specific audience, this comment, but like, why me as a person of color in
Mm-hmm.
America do I feel like I have to code switch?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I feel like I can be authentically me in certain settings? All of these things and thoughts and processes are constantly spinning. And so, again, in order for me, what I needed to do was reclaim that power of no, 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 no. That's fear. That's worry. That's doubt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is how I want to show up. This is how I'm going to show up. It doesn't matter the color of my skin. It's the content of my character, right? I think it's fitting that it is that month, right, where we can embrace those who've come before us, you and I wouldn't be able to have this conversation if people
Absolutely not.
before us didn't take the step to say, hey, we want to see a world that is full of peace, full of love, that is equal. We're far from all of it. However, we are way further ahead than we once were, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's getting to the point now where you and I, as men of color, we can look at each other and pour into each other, opposed to there being conflict,
Yep.
because that is the construct of what was designed. If as long as there's conflict within, right? Like there can be no peace externally. And so my hope and goal is to show not just people of color, but everybody, we have to deal with the conflict within so we can have peace and love externally.
That's so interesting that you said that because I mean it's a huge topic, obviously, but I'm still glad you brought it up. Um, a lot of times I feel that African American males have conflicts with each other because they were always told that speaking about emotions make them soft, make them weak. You know, that's what society told them. In my cases, like I had an African and a Caribbean background growing up. Don't talk about your feelings. Just tough it out, thug it out. I told you this when we spoke the first
Yeah.
time. That's what I got growing up.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, I feel like things that could be simply resolved with communication. When you said this made me feel like this. Oh, well, this is what I meant when I said that. You know, I apologize that it came across the wrong way. You shake hands and you move forward. But no, it's more like I'm going to approach you on some tough stuff because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm a man and I'm an African American man that has had a chip on my shoulder my whole life. So then there's all this unnecessary conflict. So just like you said, having these kind of conversations, it's something that's newer. I've seen it happening more often now. And I think it's really important. The other part I wanted to mention was what you talked about with school. My parents were very big on school, especially being from third world countries. My mother coming from Guyana, my father coming from Ghana. They met in America, in the US. So where they both grew up were poor kind of country areas. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have much of anything. They just had their family. And I mean, I'm not going to say that's nothing. Um, it's beautiful to have your family and love and everything. I just mean big house, possessions, that kind of thing. The things that we value here in like America, North America, etc. So, they were big on getting their educations when they came here. I want to get an education, I want to start a family, and I don't want my kids to have to grow up with the same kind of, you know, poor lifestyle that I grew up with. So they accomplished that. You know, my dad was very educated, my mom educated. He was an accountant. She just retired a couple years ago as a nurse. You know, we lived, I'm not going to say we were rich or anything, but you know, a good middle class life. Um, and it was always like, get your education, go to school, get your bachelor's degree. Hopefully, you'll go further than that, master's degree, whatever you want to do, and work hard and that kind of thing. And that's admirable. I always say that. I don't knock that, and I don't take anything away from that. But it's just like what you said about concepts. The concepts were all relating to learning, making money, and buying things and having possessions. There was nothing about how you're going to survive in the world. There was nothing about your interactions with people on a personal level. There was nothing about how are you going to learn your triggers and manage your triggers. There was nothing really about self development and personal development or emotional quotient. And I feel like I feel like because those things were not things that we talked about growing up and going into school and going into college and everything, we got to a point where the world just put us through the ringer. And when we got to those therapists, they're teaching us how to crawl and then how to, you get up, you're learning how to walk and then you fall. And then you learn how to jog a little bit, or it's like learning how to ride a bike. Things that we should have gotten, they should be a part of all these different concepts that we got early. And we're having to learn these things for the first time as grown adults.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Self-awareness, character, integrity. Imagine if those things were taught when we were growing up,
Yeah.
right? And I know that there are some schools, there are some teachers that do that, and shout out to them, right? But from a education standpoint in the United States, from the top down, it is not.
Mm.
And so we have to do a better job of doing that work in our homes, in our communities. And there are a lot of organizations that are now pushing that, right? They're pushing healing. And I will say this, we can push it all day. No one really cares what we say until they know how much we care. And the
Yeah.
only way we can show them that we care is by showing up, is by continuing to do events that bring community together, by continuing to reach out on social media and saying, hey, I see you, right? That all builds community. And so I think what you and I are doing is we're doing exactly what we said we wanted to do. We're beginning to take the reins and say, hey, this is actually how I want to live. These are the people I actually want to spend time with. And look at how our world is changing,
Mm-hmm.
the conversations that we're having now. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine the impact generations later, because we became this. And so our trauma can stop with us. The generations before us, because there is such a thing as generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That trauma, I woke up one day and I, because of the work that I'm doing, and I was like, it ran into the wrong person, right? It was like, it's not getting past me.
Mm-hmm.
And the trauma that did get past me, which was now passed to my son. Do you think if I would have had the understanding when I was 19 years old to deal with my stuff ahead of time, that my child would be dealing with the stuff that he's dealing with? Because quite honestly, a lot of what he's dealing with was stuff that was inside of me. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know how to handle it. And so when you look at your children, for those of you that are parents out there, recognize that some of that trauma that you are personally dealing with was passed down a long time ago, and it just kept getting passed down. And so now you as a parent, you're looking at your child like, well, what is going on? And it's like, well, if we take a deeper look, there's probably something in us that we didn't heal, that we didn't work on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a shot. That is just, hey, it's okay. We're all managing this right now, right? But the only way to truly get through this is to do the work ourselves to make sure that whatever is left in us is healed, so that only healed, only healing, only growth, only positivity gets passed, right? The negativity is a part of the human experience, but
Mm-hmm.
we can learn how to navigate through those waters to make sure the trauma is healed and we're passing down better habits. That is my hope.
Yeah, and I really like what you said there because I think so much can be said for being able to take an honest look at yourself and at your life and the impact of the things that you are going through. that what they have on the people around you, whether that be your children, whether that be family, whether that be close friends. Shoot, it could even be people that are coworkers of yours. We tend to be selfish in that sense, we as people, in feeling like, oh, this is just my problem. I'm the only one who has to deal with this. Nobody else is going through the things that I'm going through. And to an extent, there's a truth to that. We all have our own unique experiences. But the people that we are close to are going to experience what you're experiencing to some degree, especially those who care about you and love you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I
And
so I feel like if more people took that time to self-reflect and say, where's this leak in this tire? Instead of just driving it around until the tire is flat and then saying, how did this happen?
yeah, just, hey, go get your annual physical. It's okay. Right? Like it's okay either way. Maybe you get a positive report. I love going in and them and my practitioner saying, "Hey, it's the walking billboard of health." Right? That's great. Makes me feel good. However, if I get a report that is not like that, at least I know what I can work on. Right? And the danger is not knowing, because when life hits and you don't know like what your triggers are, you don't know where it can hit because you don't know where you're vulnerable. That's a slippery slope. It's going to be way worse. I know now where the devil can attack me, right? So I work on those areas. Now
Mhm.
I'm human. So there's always something new. There's always something new that he can, a different angle he can hit me at, or a different approach. But when you put your armor on, you're just better equipped for the battle.
Right. I always like to use, everyone who knows me knows I always use fitness and sports analogies. So when I get really out of shape, I don't want to step on the scale. I don't want to try on those clothes that I know used to fit me and are not going to fit me anymore. I'm just like, let me get on the track, let me get in the gym. And then once I've made a little bit of progress with whatever I'm doing, then maybe I can do that assessment. That's not actually beneficial to me because I don't really even know what it is that I'm working on. So it's the hardest part to actually be like, I have to see where I am right now. Step on the scale right now, whatever it says, write it down. That's some accountability. Okay, I was 150 pounds before, now I'm 190. It is what it is. That's where I am now. What have I been doing to get there? This is how my eating has been. Have that all written down. This is how often I have been going to the gym. I'm supposed to be going 4 days a week, and I've been going one day every other week. Yeah, it's hard to take a look at all those things and then say, oh, the clothing size that I fit in used to be medium, now it's XL. But there's a purpose to doing all of that because now that I know this is where I am, this is how I got there, this is where my fitness levels are at this point, this is how my body is shaped right now. Now I'm like, I can attack the weaknesses, like you just said. I know the things that got me here, even though it took a lot of time of not checking in with myself. Now I can kind of analyze the things that got me here and figure out a plan of action. But the plan
Yeah,
of action is not it. That's just the beginning of the commitment towards getting to where you want to get to.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's do you have the energy to stay committed to what you said you would do long after the energy is gone? Because everybody gets hype at the beginning of the year. I got these goals. I got these endeavors. And then most people just, they can't even make it through January,
Mhm.
right? Like, to be quite honest, I call this the audit. Are you, for purposes of the name, are you mentally shredded enough to do an audit, to truly look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, this is where I am. I can be honest, as open and honest with myself as possible. Nobody's in there. You don't got to record it. Say whatever you need to say.
Mhm.
And then say, this is where I want to go. This is who I want to be. Do you have the courage to do the work to bridge that gap? I believe people do. I believe they have the courage. I believe people are waiting for permission. So I'm giving you permission to bridge the gap. I'm giving you permission to be open and honest and vulnerable with yourself, to become who you said you wanted to be.
And with that, the point that I had in my head 30 minutes ago came back to me. It was going to bother me if it didn't come back, but you just said enough that just brought it back into my mind. I remember there was a point in time in my life where my mental health issues were not obvious to everybody. So I was able to actually hide those when I wanted to. Even panic attacks, even something like panic attacks. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. I need to get something from my car. And then I would suffer in the car until the panic attack goes away, come back in like nothing happened. I had very close people to me at that point in time that had no clue that I even had a mental health diagnosis. And this was because family of mine, and I will say, well-meaning family that loved me, but were just a product of what they were told in their generation and generations before. If you have mental health issues, you're crazy or you're demon possessed. There is no other thing aside from that. So they would tell me, okay, they finally accepted that I was going to therapy. It's okay that you go to therapy, but don't tell anybody about it because it's going to subject you to gossip, ridicule. People are going to look at you differently. They're going to think of you as weak, and you cannot be perceived that way in today's world. It will ruin your life. So, for a long time, I had these two separate worlds. I had this world where I worked on myself in group therapy, individual therapy, self development, reading books, a lot of different things that I was doing, meditating, exercise, and then this other world where I just lived like I didn't have any of those problems. That was a stress in and of itself. I said something on my page not too long ago where I said, being honest with yourself and being transparent with others is actually a form of self care. Because for me, it was giving me extra anxiety that I had to act this way in this setting with these people and then act this way in this other setting with these people. And that's not to say I go to my friends and I'm like, talk to them the same way I talk to my therapist. Okay, here's what's going on with my week. This happened, and this happened. But I just mean the willingness to say, hey, I am a person who is working on myself. I do have a mental health diagnosis. Sometimes it hinders me a little bit, but it doesn't stop me. I keep going and I work on myself. Just being able to say things like that was like, I don't have to be two different people. These are all parts of me. There's parts of me that do sports. There's parts of me that play music. There's parts of me that are funny. There's also parts of me that goes through states of depression, anxiety, all of that. So music and mental health for me, we talked about mentally shredded. There was a time when I didn't want to attach myself, my name, or my face to anything that I was doing relating to mental health. I said, I'm just going to, in secret, put out like mental health tips, and people are just going to rock with that. And it wasn't happening. I wasn't gaining any subscribers. People were not really DMing me about that. And then when I started making videos, that's when people were like, I really connect with what you're saying. Thank you so much for this message. I appreciate that. And I realized the power and the importance of that transparency. I don't ever have to act like I'm this person and I'm this person. And I know plenty of this is not meant to be a negative comment, but I have so many people in my life who talk to me about their issues and they're no different than mine. Yes, they're different in a sense that everyone has their own life, but I'm just saying at their core, I got serious anxiety problems. I'm having these problems with family. I'm having these problems with depression. And then, they're connecting with the things that I'm saying, but nobody in their life knows that they're having those struggles because they're the strong, brave one. So that's what I would like to say to the people is it does not make you not strong and brave to be able to say, sometimes I have issues that are tough to manage on my own, and I've gotten help for it or I'm getting help from it. And let's say I'm going to therapy. Um, it doesn't make you weak to be vulnerable with people and just let them know now is not really a good time for me because of whatever it is. Not that you have to tell them everything, but just being able to say that in and of itself is such a stress relief for a person. So that's what I wanted to say for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. Anytime we keep it bottled up, there's a amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score, right? And
I like the name
so,
of it already.
yeah, so when you keep things bottled up, whether it's your trauma, whether it's your past experiences that you just didn't heal through, your body holds on to that and it turns into health issues. It turns into things like cancer, turns into things outside of just what you would deem as mental health.
Yep.
It turns into conditions that now we can see, but we don't associate the two, which is why I want to encourage people to seek help, which is why I want to encourage people to work through whatever it is that you're working through or need to work through, because your body is holding on to all of this stuff, whether you believe it or not, right? I've seen firsthand people's health decline, right? I've seen family members' health decline rapidly like that. And I can tell you, they did not share what was going on with them, right? They were from that generation that were like, this is going with me to the grave. What kind of life is that? Because now you can't really enjoy, right? You're just existing. And some of those same people had some amazing dreams. They had some amazing gifts and things that were still inside of them. And I truly believe that they would be here today to accomplish some of those things if they were willing to do the work.
Absolutely. I love that title of that book that you're talking about, The Body Keeps the Score, because that's something that I always say. This is what happened to me. Energy has to go somewhere. Ignoring it does not make it go away. And that was the case for me for many years. Whatever I was experiencing emotionally, I just bottled it up. I wouldn't tell a soul because I knew that if I told anyone, I would get shut down, ridiculed, whatever it was. So I'm like, okay, let me just keep pushing forward and keep pushing forward. And that's how it manifested itself into my body as these anxiety and panic attacks. And when they told me that that's what it was, I said, no, that's not what it is. I thought I had a heart attack. I went to the hospital more than 30 times in 1 year. They did the same thing every time I went. Chest x-ray, let's give you the breathing machine. And I think a few times they gave me some Ativan and then they sent me on my way. But I'm like, there's some kind of physical thing that they missed. Through all the things that I've learned through all these different years of therapy, speaking to people and advocating and working as a counselor. I learned how much the mind can impact the body. It's all connected. You know, I had gastrointestinal issues because of what was starting up here. I had major weight loss. Some people have major weight gain. I had dizziness, vertigo issues, many things that all started, just like you said, up here because the body kept the score. So when you think that you're having a big problem, but you're like, I'm the tough, strong one that is going to keep going, you can keep going for now, but eventually it comes to a point that it catches up to you. So my thing would be, instead of letting it pile up, deal with it as it comes. Don't let that to-do pile get so big that it feels unmanageable. And now you have to do all this work to get these things down to a manageable size. Take care of them as soon as you feel them.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so I guess we're getting close to the end, but I just wanted to tell you, I really appreciate you for this conversation. I think that I've only had a couple like this specifically. You know, I've had plenty of different conversations, but on this topic, not many, and not many that I can relate to on the type of level that I can relate to your story. And I appreciate what you do, and I'm thankful that you reached out.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. And again, it's uh it's a part of my story, but we're just beginning.
Is your page name We Are Mentally Shredded or just Mentally Shredded?
So the Instagram is We Are Mentally Shredded.
So I assume Mentally Shredded was taken when you tried to do it, right?
So it's funny, Mentally Shredded was and is taken, and it actually worked out in my favor because we builds community. Mentally Shredded is just a name, right? And so that's why I was like, all right, I'll take it.
That's awesome. I like the way you reframed that. Well, thanks again, Chris, and thanks to everybody out there. Is there any last words that you want to give before you go?
Yeah, just guys, there's there is no need for us to look at mental health as weakness anymore. Every highly successful person takes care of their mental state, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a CEO or a top executive at a company, right? It does not matter. They all prioritize their mental state, right? Whether you call it mental health or mental performance or whatever, it,
Mhm.
it's still the mind. So I encourage you to do just that. You can also check us out at mentallyshredded.org. And I'm just grateful to be here. And thank you again, Mark, for this opportunity.
No problem. And everyone out there, have an amazing day.